One of the very first decisions you're faced with when you're starting Monster Hunter World is which of the 14 weapons you want to try out first. Whether you're brand new to the game or franchise, or you've heard that all 14 weapons are returning for Monster Hunter Wilds and you want to see what they're all about, it can be quite daunting without a little bit of guidance. Every single weapon is viable and a fantastic choice, so I'm going to outline what each one does well, a sort of celebration of the 14 weapons if you will, to hopefully better give you an idea of which ones may be suitable for you. I'm Light It Up Dan, and on the channel I love producing content that aims to reduce the overwhelm and unknown of the Monster Hunter games. If you haven't caught the other videos, there is something there for everyone, and after this you may want to check out the easy to hard weapon overview I've already done, which goes into a little bit more depth. Very quickly before we jump in, a massive thank you to all of you who have really turned up and gotten us to around 80% of unsubscribed viewers on the channel, with the majority of you returning. If you enjoy the videos, do subscribe. I'm aiming to get that down to 50%, and with that said, let's get to it. Up first, we've got the famous poster weapon of the franchise, the Greatsword. A slow, heavy-hitting, very deliberate weapon, delivering the highest single target damage in the game. A phenomenal choice that requires you to have excellent positioning, spacing, and timing, as many of the attacks plant you in place and require you to know the monster's attack patterns, allowing you to be effective and strike during your windows of opportunity. The Greatsword features charging attacks, rewarding you with massive damage if you can time your attacks perfectly, particularly useful when the monster is toppled or stunned. There are a few options in the moveset that allow you to play the more charged attack style, or to do some of the pivoting maneuvering strikes and using that with your slinger burst to get to the most powerful attacks at the end. I favour the second playstyle because it feels much more involved, but there's absolutely a place for both of them, and you don't have to strictly be one or the other. With some good defensive capabilities as well, such as holding your sword out forwards to block, and one of the best features about the weapon to be able to tackle through attacks, giving you hyper armor and very high damage mitigation, enabling the player to continue on with their charged attack combos, strategically cancelling through enemy attacks for that sweet true charge slash at the end. Mwah! Chef's kiss. For players who favour a playstyle of fewer hits but massive dick damage when you do land your attacks. Next is one of the most favoured weapons in the game, and for very good reason because it's super fun. We've got the longsword, a diverse weapon that enables you to dish out damage stylishly, dodging through attacks with full invincibility frames, and countering with pinpoint precision. Yeah, it's popular for a reason, it's goddamn awesome. One of the gauge style weapons which powers up as you dish out more attacks, allowing you to increase the level of the gauge as well, so when you do come to expending it with your powerful attacks like Spirit Helm Breaker, you're able to do even more damage. You can swing the sword around, build up your spirit gauge, unleash spirit slash combos to level up the gauge, or land your foresight slash iframe dodges as well, which will let you go straight up a tier. But my favourite thing to do, admittedly it's very hard to do, is to go into the special sheath stance, and just when you're being struck by a monster, unleashing your EI spirit slash attack, negating the damage that you would have received, slicing through with a powerful counter attack, and because you perfect timed it, not using up one of your spirit gauge levels too. Particularly epic when you're already at max level 3 red gauge, and you just get to keep it because you landed this awesome attack at the right time. Unleashing these perfect dodges, these perfect counters, are going to demand excellent monster knowledge. These moves are not easily landed reactively. You need to know what's coming in advance. All in all, unleash the power of anime, tap into your Demon Slayer vibes, and enjoy trying out a super fun weapon. Next, we've got an absolutely phenomenal choice, what many regard as the ultimate weapon in the game, myself included, the Sword and Shield. Great to pick up and play with easy to understand combo inputs that can be infinitely chained. Quick, powerful strikes, lots of versatility, excellent mobility both in and around combos as well, incorporating gap closing attacks, back steps with big iframes as well, a whole shield if you do want to block attacks with a bit of a panic button, and access to some of the most powerful attacks in the game. The perfect rush combo that you can unleash deals so much damage, which can be very easily incorporated aggressively during enemies' attacks, particularly because it initiates after doing a backstep, which has a lot of iframes. Most of your attacks will deal severing damage, so you can cut off tails if you want to. You do have a big blunt combo you can do with your shield bashes as well, just punching the shit out of stuff with your shield. Very low skill floor, but very high skill ceiling as well. Great for newcomers to pick up, but you can also become this absolute devastating force with it too. One of my personal favorites, you gotta give this thing a go. Next, we've got another highly anime weapon, Datebayo, the dual blades. These things are pretty dope and pretty much turn you into a ninja. It even has a bloody Naruto run, for God's sake. A super fun, high mobility, very quick hitting weapon, unleashing a rapid flurry of blows to overwhelm an enemy. The high mobility makes up for the lack of defensive options, allowing you to both move at high speed and to dodge around freely too. This weapon effectively features two different states that you'll be bouncing between. Your normal dual blade state, where you have your regular Y attack combo string, and then your mobility strikes, which move you to a different location whilst dealing damage with your B combos. When you move into the other state, the demon mode state, you will also have these two attacks, but your Y flurry becomes this massive barrage of strikes, dealing a huge amount of damage, and your B pivoting combo attacks allow you to reposition and gap close much more effectively, whilst also dealing even more damage. So demon mode is being in this powered up super state. Whilst you land attacks in demon mode, your gauge will fill up. Once full, your overall damage output increases across the board because you're in archdemon mode, and going out of the demon mode state back into the regular mode will have powered up sort of semi-demon mode attacks, if you will. A bit of upkeep here as well, as your demon mode will constantly drain your stamina, and given that's where your most powerful attacks are taking place, you are going to want to be in demon mode a lot, so you're going to have to manage that stamina. If you typically play high mobility, twin blade, dual blade style classes in different games, you dig the thief twin dagger playstyle as well, this is going to be a weapon that you really enjoy. Fast, flashy, great damage, and of course, you've got an Naruto run. Datebayo! Oh boy, here comes another one of my mains. Friends, I cannot recommend the hammer enough. Listen, this weapon is just stupid fun. It deals an absolute ton of damage. Your bonk is indeed very strong. You can say you belong to groups like the Bonk Brotherhood, or the KO Kens, or even the Dong Dynasty, as well as very high damage with quick, low commitment strikes. You're also sporting some of the strongest stun in the game. By focusing your bonks to the monster noggin, you'll achieve a ton of KOs, which is super useful for you and your squad. Great for weak points that are particularly weak to bludgeoning damage, and of course for part breaks as well. Many of the attacks give you so much bang for your buck, in terms of relatively how low commitment and quick they are, to how much damage they dish out. It's sort of like having a quick greatsword that you're just smashing over the heads of monsters. It's mad. You're able to enter a charged state, lugging your hammer around to unleash some powerful charge attacks, and another weapon with no inherent defensive capability, so you are going to have to be mindful of dodging effectively. Very simple, easy to understand input combos. Great for beginners. This is such a fantastic choice to pick up and play, and as per all weapons in Monster Hunter, honestly, a tremendous skill ceiling that you can really master and take to another level. Can you tell I like hammer? Because I really like hammer. Next up is the hammer's musical sibling, the hunting horn. It's sort of like staring down a monster with a massive set of bagpipes that you then proceed to smash over their face. And by sort of, I mean that's exactly what we're doing. A tremendous weapon that allows you to perform support functions while still being a deadly offensive force. You see, in Monster Hunter, you're not supposed to use any weapons in the background. Corner healing, it gets dubbed. Even with a hunting horn, you're supposed to be in the fray, in the fight, landing your strikes where you can. And the damage this thing pours out is just out of this world. It can even outdo the hammer quite easily with dishing out KO and getting your stuns. Each hunting horn has a set of songs that are attached to it, which you're able to play by using the correct notes for the song. Once you've got them banked up, you can then perform these melodies, unleashing the skill or buff attached to the song. This can be a really overwhelming and daunting weapon to pick up and play because it is quite complex. You've got a bunch of different attack inputs which behave in different ways and unleash different attacks depending on where you are in the combo, how you're holding your left stick. There's quite a lot to take in, so definitely one to practice in the training area a good bit before you take it out. But this is truly an absolute powerhouse weapon, not only for the support functions and the powerful buffs that you can give, but the mobility you've got with the weapon, the damage you deal with these low commitment, fast, far-reaching strikes. It is an all-round excellent weapon. If you usually favor more of a support class or a team buffing playstyle, Hunting Horn may just be your calling. But once again, do keep in mind that you are going to be required to get stuck in as well. The damage it can deal is just too good not to. Next is a weapon that allows you to become a paladin, equipped with the strongest block in the game and a powerful pointy jabby stick. This is the Lance, putting you in the front line against the monster, going toe to toe, meeting every one of its attacks with your powerful blocks and counters, returning the favor with these strong jabs. The Lance is a fantastically offensive weapon, rewarding and demanding very high uptime, often misconstrued as a very defensive turtling weapon when you're sort of hanging out in the back, holding up your shield all the time. No, you're right in the face of the monster. A very involved weapon that will require you to be on the ball for the entire hunt. One of the very few weapons with actual counter mechanics. This can be a super fun choice for those of you who like a parry and counter playstyle. The precision of the lateral jabs and of the upward jabs allows you to target weak points very effectively, getting part break after part break, which will get you a ton of topples as well. Oh, it's just such a joy. Good inbuilt mobility and gap closers in the form of hops in between your attacks, and a charging jousting attack you can do too, which is pretty epic. Lance gives me a feeling that I am in control of the fight much more so than other weapons do. A low skill floor that's very easy to pick up and play with very simple to understand combo inputs, but as with all weapons in Monster Hunter, a tremendous skill ceiling. People often say it looks boring to play, but what I really recommend is that you give it a spin. You might just find that you prefer Lance as a matchup against certain monsters over other weapons that you used to use. Next up, we've got the Lance's American freedom-loving twin, the Gunlance, another weapon with fantastic defensive capabilities. It has the joint best guard in the game with the Lance. It can just take a little bit longer to get into it. This weapon features shelling, which you're able to fire off in between attacks or let out all in one go during a full burst. While it does feature the pokey stabby playstyle of the Lance, you can also slap chop the goddamn thing around, cracking monsties over the head, whipping them across the face. It's pretty epic. And these slaps do a ton of damage too. At the end of a full smash combo, you're able to fire out a worm stake cannon. This is a lot of ticks for a lot of damage. What's really cool about the Gunlance is it's quite versatile. There's a few different playstyles that you can go for, and some of that will be down to what type of Gunlance it is, or rather what shelling type it is. You can fire off individual shots in between your attacks. You can do the full burst to let them all off at the end of an overhead smash. You can smash around and do worm stake cannons. I am somewhat partial to the slap chop playstyle myself, I must say. The Gunlance is capable of dishing out a tremendous amount of damage. You can just see some of these popping up on screen here. It's crazy. So once more, don't just see the big shield and think it's a defensive turtling weapon. It's highly aggressive and very high damage. A little bit tricky to pick up because some of the inputs are quite complex and a little bit finicky, but an excellent choice nonetheless and just super fun. You'll probably find that you'll be managing sharpness quite a bit with this weapon, as a bunch of the attacks like the full burst does eat away at sharpness. Once you've got some of the combo inputs down, you know which styles you like, how to go to and from them, and you know how to get into your guard in between your different attacks. You're going to be an absolute force. And always remember, Gunlance equals Funlance. Next is an absolutely badass weapon which switches between a two-handed giant axe and a two-handed giant sword. It's of course the switch axe, boasting tremendous reach and axe form with really good gap closing, wide hitting attacks, dishing out an absolute ton of damage. Funnily, in your axe form, your mobility is better than in the the sword form, despite it being bigger. Axe gives you access to these slow, big hitting attacks with a long range, while sword is quicker, high burst damage, shorter range attacks. In sword form, your attacks will fill out your gauge, powering up your switch axe with each and every attack. Once filled, you'll deal additional damage and you'll get access to the very powerful zero-sum discharge, where you latch onto a monster's part, constantly tick damage away before finally exploding off them. It's kind of nuts. There's a limit to how many attacks you can do in sword form, including the zero-sum discharges, both of which consume the switch gauge running through the middle. When this runs out, you'll be forced back into axe form until it reaches the bar so that you can go back into sword form once more. You can still do zero-sum discharges by clutch clawing onto the monster, even in axe form and even with the depleted switch gauge. As long as the switch axe is in the amped state, you can spam those ZSDs. Great for getting part breaks. Another very versatile weapon that is just so flashy and so damn cool to play. If you want to swing it around in a giant axe form for the most part, do it. Do you really like the feel of being in the sword form? Okay, cool. You can be in sword form as much as possible. You want to just keep spamming your ZSDs? Alright, well, go for it. Myself, I'm very partial to using the morph strike attacks. These are really flashy and very powerful, and then utilizing sword form wherever I can. The thing is just badass. There's a little bit to manage here. You've got two separate gauges. You might want to power up the axe form with a heavy slam attack. It takes a little bit to understand your different combos, which morph attacks are really good, etc. But once you get a hang of it, once you get the swing of it, it is so damn good. Next up, we've got another weapon that could have been straight out of Bloodborne as well. This time switching between a giant sword and board and another giant two-handed axe. We're of course talking about the charge blade, often referred to as the most complex melee weapon, and for pretty good reason. I think that checks out, honestly. The premise of the weapon is in its sword and board form, whilst you are attacking, you will build up charge. Once sufficiently charged, you can store this to gain files, which can then be utilized to do various things. After you've stored up your files, you can charge up your shield to make your block more powerful, and your axe swings deal more damage. You can also charge up your sword to make that deal more damage too. Where the charge blade really shines is what you decide to do next though. Once your shield is charged up, you can store some files again and unleash a devastating attack called the Super Amped Element Discharge, the SAED. Alternatively, you can also turn it into a giant pizza cutter, transforming the weapon into Savage Axe mode. No, we want it to be spinning and shredding. These are effectively the two different schools you can play this weapon in. Sure, there's cross-pollination between the two, and they can be situational for monsters for various openings, but like with these other weapons, you'll probably pick one style or another that you favor. Me, I'm all about that Savage Axe, I'm telling you. Charging up that shield, getting some files once again, transforming it into Savage Axe mode, and then just swinging up and down and up and down, just ripping and tearing through a monster. Absolute carnage, dealing a tremendous amount of damage, and you'll get crazy part breaks doing this. Savage Axe mode does tear through sharpness, so you will have to be mindful of that. And it's not like you don't already have enough to keep on top of with the charge blade. There's a lot of moving parts, and that does take up a bit of mental space whilst you're playing the weapon. But just look at the versatility it provides. A devastating offensive force. Fantastic mobility attacks allowing you to maneuver about the battlefield whilst striking. The shield isn't just for show, you've got very strong blocking capabilities too. And whilst the damage from SAED, Savage Axe, or just Axe form is all very good, don't sleep on the sword and board form, it's excellent. With some more advanced techniques to explore like guard pointing. There's a huge skill ceiling on this thing, and you can really dish out damage when you get good with it. For players looking for a very versatile weapon that excels both in offense and defense, that are comfortable taking on something that's going to be more complex than some of the other choices here. Next up, we've got the only aerial weapon in the game. And no, ledge or sliding attacks where you jump off the ground with another weapon doesn't make it an aerial weapon. I can jump on the spot right now, IRL. I wouldn't say I can fly. Anyway, introducing the only aerial weapon, Insect Glaive. This thing is a beast. It has possibly the best mobility in the game, as implied, allowing you to fly through the air with your acrobatic attacks, pole vaulting about the place like an absolute madman, mostly for style, but the descending thrust is really powerful. It's got a fantastic reach and bursts out a tremendous amount of damage with its very powerful ground combos, which should be your bread and butter with a weapon. The bug it comes with is also a very big part of the weapon. You can get it to go nibble at certain parts of the monster, giving it various color-coded extracts. These power you up in various ways, and getting all three gives you an overall big damage and defense buff. A bit of micromanagement going on with this weapon as well. You essentially want to get your triple buff, and then you're good until you need to recharge it. The incredible mobility the weapon affords you is your form of defense, with no explicit guarding or countering mechanics. Very versatile, very fast-paced, very fluid. You feel like a gymnast, like a ballerina, but also a ninja and a monk. Do not sleep on the ground combos with this weapon. It deals a tremendous amount of damage, going between the Y string over to the B string with that big tornado slash at the end. You'll be dishing out so much pain. Another bonus with the aerial attacks is it's very good for getting mounts, which is always super useful for you and your squad to get an additional topple on the monster. For those of you who like the pole staff monk style of gameplay, you are gonna love this weapon. Give it a spin, see how you feel. On to the last three range weapons now, which can be some of the most powerful overtuned weapons in the game. Starting us off with a light bowgun. Turning Monster Hunter into a third-person shooter, this is a really fun weapon to pick up and play with. You point, you aim, you shoot. That's the core premise of the weapon. Each bowgun will have various ammo types that they can use and they can't use, and one or two will be more efficient to use than others. Effectively, each bowgun is kind of built around one or two different types of ammo, and depending on what style you want to play, do you want to use spread ammo like a shotgun, or normal ammo for a standard shot, maybe sticky bombs, maybe piercing rounds. Different playstyles, different options, different weapons. You can see here I'm using the Raging Bracky light bowgun, which allows you to use normal ammo 3. All of the 3 ammos are very powerful, which specifically has 1 round in the magazine, but it's also a rapid firing attack. What's pretty neat about the light bowgun, which separates it from the heavy bowgun, is your mobility is particularly good with it. Both your running speed with the weapon being out, and your ease and flexibility of doing your dodges, combined allow for good mobility with the weapon. All the ranged weapons feature an effective range you need to be within in order to deal full damage. This can be tweaked with various mods that you equip onto the bowgun, but generally speaking, you're not going to be on the other side of the map. You've also got special ammo you can use, the Wyvern Blasts. I changed mine over to the Wyvern Blast counter, which fires out the blast into the ground, propels you backwards, and deals a ton of damage if the enemy attacks. There's an absolute ton to explore here. What ammo types you want to use and you like. There is quite a bit of setup involved behind the scenes with these weapons, which can be particularly overwhelming at first, but once you've got your head around that, they are super fun to pick up and play with. For players who want to have a simple ranged weapon experience, but value good mobility as well, this is your choice. Next, we've got the light bowgun's big sister, the deadly heavy bowgun. Similar to the light ones, but packs more of a punch, has more of the higher power ammos, paid for with worse mobility. A very powerful weapon that has many meta builds made around it. Whether with spread 3 ammo or with sticky bombs, it can truly trivialize many a fight. With this one, you're going to be more in place and firing out your more powerful ammo, so I guess a somewhat slower experience that focuses more on the aiming and shooting element. It's super fun, and I'm not gonna lie, all the meta builds are kind of OP. They do trivialize content, but that can be pretty fun as well. It's a game where we're all about power fantasies, we're facing off against monsters, so why not? Heavy bowgun also has special ammo. In this case, you can turn it into a machine gun and just rattle off bullets, dealing an incredible amount of damage. It's insane. There's also a different variant where it turns into a sniper rifle and you fire off this explosive shot. It's very cool. If you like ranged weapons, you are gonna have a really fun time with this one. Similarly, quite a bit of setup involved with your ammos, with your mods, etc. That can be very confusing and daunting for a new player, so that might take a little while for you to wrap your head around, but once you're good with that, as a ranged weapon lover, you are going to have such a great time with this one. As per the 2 light bowguns, another exceptionally powerful weapon with the right loadouts with the right builds. Introducing the very powerful bow, providing excellent mobility, far outclassing the previous bowguns, even whilst attacking during various pivoting attacks. It's a ranged weapon, but again, you're going to be quite up close and personal, ensuring that you're within effective range for your attacks. With the bow, you can apply various coatings, dealing additional damage when up close, all around making it more powerful, or even increasing your status elemental attack. A great pick up and play weapon with very easy to understand inputs for the most part. It does also have a few tricks up its sleeve. Alongside your regular attacks, you can also do charging sidestep, various power and quick shots as well, and even setting up for a dragon piercer attack which goes through the whole length of a monster, potentially dealing dealing some pretty good damage. The payoff for both fantastic damage and fantastic mobility is its rapid stamina depletion. You're going to be battling stamina management all the time. It's why most bow users have a terrible dash juice addiction. Filthy bloody junkies. But a super fun weapon to pick up and play. It's quite easy to understand out of the box. If you like ranged weapons a little more on the high fantasy side of things, it feels more involved. You're moving about and sliding around all over the place. It's very cool. That's a wrap on all of them. Which ones look good to you? Have you tried any of them out already? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. As mentioned at the start, the other all weapons overview, easy to hard, that I've done goes into much greater depth with all of the weapons specific mechanics and combos. If you're looking for something a little bit more on the intermediate to expert side, you definitely want to check that out. Again, thank you all for really turning up and getting us to around 80% of unsubscribed viewers on the channel, with the majority of you returning. If you enjoy the videos, do subscribe. I'm trying to get that down to 50%. If you want to join a welcoming, inclusive community open to all, feel free to hop into the Discord. We have open sessions for Monster Hunter World, for Monster Hunter Rise, players across all platforms. Everyone's welcome. I'll leave the links for all of these in the description. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in the new world.